Greetings, everyone! And I'm still recording everything in a row because the cat decided to take a walk and then come back to lay on my arm, and it's hurting and I can't move, and she is so pleased with herself. Say hi, darling. Yeah, you don't talk much. Anyways, this is episode 19 of Fanfic Read-Through, and I will be reading to you Ghost Crime, chapter 19. Take us back to Chicago, the same time and place that we left, said Rossi. Everyone was holding on to the info map. They had to tell Jero to hold on to it tight by using gestures. Phantom was standing between Sam and Tucker. Tucker was holding on to the map with his left hand for dear life as they were pulled away faster than they could blink, picking up glimpses of London. Then they were in the park again, being drawn up to the night sky and through the portal into the green vortex of the ghost zone, after which Rossi lost track of what was happening around them. Their feet struck the floor of the conference room at the CPD, papers flying around the room. Luke was the first one to let go of the map, opting for a more comfortable seat on the floor rather than the chair. Lewis helped the dizzy Jero to sit down on one of the chairs, pouring a glass of water for her. A slow clapping made everyone turn to the whiteboard and the bald man standing in front of it. Guns were out and pointed at the man faster than anyone could blink. "Oh, please. Have you forgotten?" Freakso said, snapping his fingers. Everyone except for Danny reacted the same way, going completely still and drawing a sharp breath, the tattoos on their neck threatening to either strangle them or cut their throats open. "You know, I should kill you all right now. You're all late after all," said Freakshow, inspecting his nails. "Depends on who you ask, considering that we were pretty early just a second ago," said Rossi, his eyes scanning the room. "Where's your friend?" he asked, wondering where Phantom was as well, or if the kid had been killed already, or if he was standing there with them. "Did she dump you?" taunted Danny, rolling up the map as if the snake on his neck wasn't trying to sink its fang into him. Annoyance flared in Freakshaw's eyes, and everyone looked at Danny in horror. The small ringmaster could literally kill them at any second, and he was taunting him? "Oh, she's around. Do you have my sword, Daniel?" Freakshaw's eyes were fixed on the sword cane attached to Danny's belt. "Can't give it to you if you don't hold up your end of the bargain," said Danny, handing the map over to Sam, taking the cane from his belt. "Oh, but I've been holding up my end. I'm actually being very merciful right now, not killing you all after making me wait for 5 hours. He smiled, reaching out for the sword cane. "And how will I know that you don't kill us all as soon as I give it to you?" asked Danny, toying with the cane. "You don't," grinned Freakshow. "You only know that if you don't give it to me right now, everyone will die." Danny's eyes moved to follow something behind Freakshow. "Let's do it like this," he said, separating his sword from the sheath. He tossed the sheath to Freakshow, who caught it in one hand. "Be very careful," hissed Rossi to Danny, who seemed not to care. The boy glanced over at the old man, his eyes a dark forest brown with specks of green in them. "Now the other part," said Freakshow, impatience growing in his voice. "Chill," said Danny, and unceremoniously sank the blade into the wooden floor. "You can have the second part when these tattoos are gone," he said, arms spread out, and slowly backing away from the blade, forcing everyone behind him to move back as well. "Smart move," said Freakshow, the FBI agents agreeing. The best way to do a hostage exchange when neither parties trusted each other was to meet halfway. Snapping his fingers, Freakshow pointed at them. "Lydia, be a dear and retrieve your pets," he said, the smile growing wider on his face. Rossi felt the spider crawl out from under his shirt collar and glanced at the others before his eyes landed on Phantom. A snake was slithering out from under the high collar of his suit, confirming his suspicion. The green ghost became visible, standing behind Freakshow, welcoming her tattoos back onto her skin. "Now that wasn't so hard, was it?" asked Freakshow, walking up to the sword. He drew it out of the floor. "I will be taking this with me now." He looked over the sword blade. "You're really so desperate to become a ghost again that you'd be willing to let a serial killer ghost overshadow you?" asked Danny, unable to keep the smile off his face. "I would be the one in control, not some—" Freakshow turned his head to Danny, the smile completely gone from his face. "Your next expression is going to be priceless." said Danny, and everyone backed away from him as the air around him grew colder. Freakshow turned fully towards Danny, his smile back on his face. "And what expression would that be?" he asked, sheathing the sword. Danny licked his lips. There was that sweetness he loved, and the taste of dawning realization from Freakshow. "You!" shrieked Freakshow, his voice going up an octave. "Yes," hummed Danny, his voice low and dark. Freakshow took a step back, and Danny took one forward, wondering if he should go for the neck, like Freakshow had done with everyone else, or toss him around like a rag doll. "You are a ghost! Ghosts can't possess other ghosts!" He took another step back. "But I'm not just another ghost. I'm the one you couldn't control." He stepped forward. "I'm the one who absorbed the Ripper Ghost, and I'm the one who will reunite you with your old crew." He had to force himself not to laugh at Freakshow, or slur his words around the large teeth in his mouth. "I have the Sword King. I control you." Faster than the human eye could follow, faster than he had ever moved on his own, Danny moved forward, closing the distance between them. His hand gripped the handle of the sword, twisting and drawing it out in a fluid motion. He swiped at Freakshow. The lucky bastard was saved by the only other non-human in the room, pulled away from his sword before it could as much as give him a scratch. The coward was smart. Instead of holding onto the sheath, he dropped it. Both he and Lydia escaped Danny's next swipe, and the ghost roared in anger as they fled. His meal, his toy, his victim had escaped. A surge of fear pressed against Danny's back. Collecting himself, he turned slowly towards the FBI agents and his friends. They would have to do. He could start with the old man. Make him suffer. Make him watch as Danny got loose on the others, ripping them limb from limb. He could freeze them for later if he wanted. Save them as a road snack. Keep them on the edge of life and death, like he was. "Danny, your eyes," said Sam, her phantom plasma gun in her hand once more. They had taken back the phantom gear from the agents before returning. A bad idea for them, but a great move for Danny. He wouldn't have to bother with more than Sam's weapon, and maybe Tucker if he could even hold one. Danny's eyes landed on Tucker. He knew a lot about his best friend. Torturing him would be easy, simple even. He could practically taste his friend's blood on his lips. Sweet like the fear and bitter from the pain. Salty and filled with iron. "Take one more step," warned Sam when Danny moved towards them. Her resolve was like biting into dirt. It made his teeth grind. He would break her. He would take all of her hopes and beliefs away from her. He would crush her in the palm of his hands, and when she thought everything was lost, he would give her a small glimmer of hope again. Make her believe that there was still a chance to be saved, for her to save him. And then he would crush that, only to repeat the process until she was nothing more than a piece of meat. He was practically quivering with excitement. Turning his foot, he lunged forward faster than any human, faster than any ghost, sword stabbing at his friends. A green blast of anti-ghost ray crashed into Danny's chest at almost point-blank range, throwing him across the length of the room, crashing into the whiteboard and concrete wall behind it. "I warned you!" shouted Sam, tears in her eyes. Even if the bullets couldn't hurt him, the agents all had their guns trained on Danny Phantom, ready to shoot as soon as he made another threatening move. Russell was impressed with the goth girl. He had thought she wouldn't hurt the ghost, considering all the warnings she had given him, but when it counted, she had pulled the trigger. Scorching anger flared in Danny's eyes as he pushed himself up off the floor. He was going to skin them alive, boil them, tear their organs from their guts while they were still breathing. And he was going to enjoy every second of their wailings and screams. He was going to feed and never go hungry again. Pain, burning hot and icy cold at the same time, went through him. Fear gave him a sour taste in his own mouth, his own fear, the bitterness of pain and the vile taste of his own regrets. Then his eyes turned to the source of the odd and yet familiar pain, widening as he realized what he had done. The sword had sunk down to the hilt in his right thigh. The feeling of his power being drawn into it made him fall down on all fours, shaking and quivering as the malice and hunger was being drawn into it as well, all the while screaming at the top of his lung, not knowing when he had started. His screams were cut off when his stomach twisted and forced its content out of his mouth. Throwing up green goo, Danny felt the light start at his middle and spread, turning his hazmat suit into a t-shirt and jeans, boots into shoes, his hair going black and ice blue. The gloves on his hand disappeared as the light traveled over him. For a moment he was still, his heart racing as he had to force himself to draw in gulps of air. He fell onto his left side, pain shooting through him from his injured abdomen. He lay there, doing the best he could to get his breathing under control, the pain from the sword in his leg not making it any easier. The agents had stared in horror when Danny got up, red eyes fixed on them, and then, as if he wasn't even aware of his own movement, Phantom had lifted the sword, turned it in his hand, and sank it to the hilt in his own leg. He had looked surprised, and then he had turned his eyes to look at the sword, and that was when he started screaming, falling down on all fours, tears in his eyes. He screamed for longer than anyone could have air in their lungs for, and when he stopped, his body heaved and he threw up. But what was the biggest shock for the agents wasn't being attacked by Phantom, or seeing him stab himself with the sword. It was seeing him change in front of their eyes. The light had started around his middle, and then split and spread up and down his body, changing his hazmat suit into normal clothes, even disappearing where he wasn't even wearing a thing. They couldn't see his eyes, but his hair turned jet black, and his skin seemed to go a couple of shades lighter. He stood on all four, heaving for a moment, before falling over to his side, a pained expression on his face. "Danny," said Sam, still not lowering her gun. Red blood was starting to soak his blue jeans, but he didn't say anything. End of chapter 19.